Good evening, wanderers. You're tuned to MT Radio, and yes, it's me, Nora Vale, keeping you company while the rest of the world pretends to sleep. Tonight's story comes from a lonely stretch of Highway 6, out past exit 19. You know the spot, that peeling billboard that promises the wolf that walked like a man. Most people think it's a scam with better marketing than morals, but lately, the desert's been whispering different reviews. Truckers are calling in about lights flickering inside the museum after hours. The local deputy has been visiting so often, folks are starting to think he's praying to the damn thing. And candles keep appearing inside the exhibit, lit, even when the place is locked up tight. Now, I'm not here to tell you what's real. I'm just here to help you notice the things you've been trying really hard not to. And what's happening in that chapel out by exit 19? People aren't asking for protection anymore. They're asking for permission. So settle in. Turn the volume up just enough to hear the wind through the cracks. And if you're driving, keep at least one eye on the moon. She's got a habit of choosing favorites. I'm Nora Vale, and this is Murderous Tongues Radio. Welcome to episode 14, The Wolf's Prayer. Let's open the case. Slowly.
They put a price on me before they put a name on me. A board out by the highway, painted by a hand that wanted to be famous. See the wolf that walked like a man. Only one ever found. Exit 19. God's Creatures Museum. The board leans in the wind. A staple of sun-bleached flyers bristles from its edge like porcupine quills. People pull off the desert road anyway, crossing the rumble strip with the careful faith of the bored and the frightened. They come because the night is too long, or the day is too bright, or there's a prayer in them they can't say to a face that remembers them. They come because they want to look through glass and feel safe. I am what the glass remembers. They have me arranged on a slight rise, a little stage made from pallets draped in funeral cloth. I am bigger than any wolf in the photos along the wall. I am wrong in a dozen small ways their eyes trip over and keep to themselves. The length of forelimb, the width of pelvis, the hint of a clavicle beneath the stitched hide. The taxidermist's needle left a seam up my belly like a zipper on a winter coat. My mouth shows more teeth than a wolf should when it's finished being polite. My eyes are glass the color of silted river water, which suits me fine. It lets me watch without being argued with. They built a chapel around me when the museum stopped paying the bills. The owner brought in a carpenter from the next town, a man who builds churches for people who can't afford them, and carnival booths for people who can. He framed me in pine, set panes like halo pieces, and hung a neon cross outside that crackles in every kind of weather. You can drop $1 in the box and light a candle. You can write a name on a motel napkin and slip it through the vent near my paw. Protection is $5. Miracles are $20. The box says, "Feed the spirit." I have been starving a very long time. I know the smell of food, even when it wears perfume and ink. They say I was found half buried near a ghost town's rusted water tower, where the ground keeps secrets and the sun forgets to be kind. They say I didn't rot. The deputy who told the story drank coffee he didn't like and said there was a feeling on the wind like someone changing their mind. He's come to see me 3 times since, checking his own story for loose bolts. He always leaves 2 quarters and 1 cigarette. He always looks like he wants to apologize, but doesn't know for what. I know. He's apologizing to the idea of me, the idea I wear. Because the sign isn't wrong. I did walk like a man. I walked like a man until the moon touched me, and all the alphabets in my body rearranged themselves into a word that tasted right. I hunted because I was asked to by something older than language. I tried not to because I was asked to by something younger than shame. I crossed an ocean with others who thought the air on the far side would be lighter to breathe. I found the desert and thought heat would be a leash. But moonlight is patient. It follows. It learns the shapes of roofs and borders and promises, and it waits until it finds your skin. Then it says, "Now. If you love me, do as I made you to do." I love the moon like a child loves a mother he's afraid to disappoint. That is one kind of faith. Another is the kind that kneels. They kneel here, on thin carpet that still remembers beer from a former life. They kneel with road grit around their socks and sunscreen in their fingers, and they confess into their own cupped hands. They talk to the glass because it doesn't talk back. They give me lint and gum and napkins with names. And the names taste like copper when I let them touch my tongue, in the slow way only dead things have left to move. I do not move when the lights are on. I do not move when a child bangs both palms against my pain and says, "He looked at me!" I do not move when the teenage boy taps his pocket knife against the case like a priest trying a bell. I do not move when the tourist in the hat says, "It's fake!" in the loud voice of a man who feels alone inside his shirt. But the glass knows when a prayer grows heavy enough to have gravity. Here is a thing about deserts. They keep sound like a miser keeps coins. You have to pry each noise loose. The highway gives up its trucks. The neon gives up its hum. The insects tie their thread into a single note that frays and knots again. Then there are the other noises, the ones faith makes. A zipper, a lighter wheel, the crack of a knuckle when someone realizes they might not be alone inside their head. On those nights, there is also breath. Not mine. Not at first. The night the deputy came with the stain on his sleeve, his own tired blood, he didn't turn on the lights. He leaned against the door frame and listened to the wind trying keys in the locks. He said, almost under his breath, "I found you," as if I didn't already know. "I didn't mean it to be you. I'm sorry." Sorry tastes the same in every mouth I've known it in. It tastes like salt pretending it doesn't want to be water. The deputy turned the neon on. He lit a candle, something Christians and the frightened agree on. He rested his fingers on the glass, near the seam where the taxidermist taught my skin how to be a coat instead of a house. His fingers left oil there. I could see every line he had earned. "You weren't supposed to be real," he said. I didn't answer. Not then. I am not a parlor trick. He came back 2 more times before he brought someone else. The someone else was a trucker who believed in patron saints and deadlines. A man with a streak of white in his beard where lightning found a permanent place. He smelled of diesel, coffee, and motel towels. A ring of road rash on his elbow the size of a saint's medallion. He looked at me the way men do when they want to be forgiven for a sin they have no intention of quitting. "Protection," he said into the box. The dollar slot took his prayer like a mouth. "I'll take the big kind." There is no big kind. There is old hunger and young hunger. Old hunger is a church. Young hunger is a gun. Both go off when you point them at something that looks like guilt. The old world made me with a word said through teeth. They followed me with torches they held like ideas. They wrote me into the back of the book and read that part aloud to their children. I know the shapes of those prayers. The New World calls an exit and a neon cross a chapel. It calls a glass case a relic. It calls the owner a caretaker. It calls me the proof. I am proof of only one thing. The animal in a body will outlast the body's story. The trucker came on a full moon without knowing. The deputy came because he did. He stood a little behind the trucker, a man bracing for a wave. He didn't touch the glass that time. He kept his hands in his pockets to see if that counted as kindness. I don't drive nights, the trucker said to no one, which is a way of saying it to God. But the schedule got tight, and when it does, I do. I see things. I don't say that, but I see them. White dogs on overpasses. A woman walking the median in a dress made from brake lights. This is me, asking nice. Keep my eyes true. The deputy said the trucker's name once, like it was a small stone in his mouth, and then said nothing else. Outside, a semi leaned on its horn somewhere far and wide, and the sound came to kneel with us. I am not a kind teacher. I am a true one. I have been a mirror as long as I've been a mouth. The first prayer I ever answered was my own, and I did not like the shape of it when it came back to me. But they ask. They ask, and things that are asked long enough come to think of themselves as answers. The trucker's breath fogged the glass, the size of my lifted paw. My glass eyes tilted by a hair. The fluorescent bulb coughed, making silence louder. The neon cross skipped a beat, which would have been funny if anyone in that room still knew how. Please, he said. The deputy said, not to me, not to him. You ever read about saints' bones? About the crowds? They said they healed. They said they bled. They said they wept. You think he's a saint? The trucker jerked his chin at my case, pretending he wasn't afraid to look at me straight. I think crowds do things to dead things, the deputy said. I think stories do. What they were waiting for weighed the air down like heat. The kind that makes the horizon look like it's trying to rise to meet you. I do not turn my head. I do not blink. I do not rearrange my teeth. But there is another kind of movement that belongs to the dead. Permission. When a prayer is honest enough, it becomes a key. It finds hinges pretending to be ornaments. It says, open, and a thing that thought it was locked remembers it is a door. The first sound was the case itself, not the glass, the wood. A stretch, a soft groan like an old animal remembering a joint. The deputy's hand came out of his pocket. The trucker took a step back, then forward again. Compromise as choreography. Don't, the deputy said to the air, and the air believed him. I opened my mouth. Only a little. Enough to let the light decide it was welcome. Enough to wet the seam with breath so thin you'd have to be desperate to believe in it. They were desperate.
The trucker made a small sound, a brave man's scream, edited for public use. He reached up, then down, then clasped both hands as if empty were a shape that needed holding. He closed his eyes. Behind his lids, the road went straight forever. Some call that mercy. Some call it hell. There's a bend coming, I said, and my voice broke like a stick stepped on in a winter forest 100 years ago. The sound surprised the room into a shape I had missed. The neon cross fizzed, then steadied. The deputy flinched,
then froze. "You'll think you can take it fast," I said. "You can't. There's a sinkhole where the asphalt mended itself proud. There'll be a deer nose in the weeds where you don't think weeds grow." I could smell the deer. I could smell the place in him that knew he'd ignore me, and the place that wanted to be a finely warned man. I could smell the deputy's veins trying to learn prayer again. "How do you—" the trucker started, then stopped, pressing his fist to his head like doors he didn't trust. "Because I've seen the road from under it," I said. "Because I've chased a thing faster than remorse. Because I've been the bend." The deputy whispers, "Christ." And it wasn't a curse. It wasn't worship either. It was a measuring word. The trucker said, "Okay," like a man who likes the math of gravity but isn't a believer yet. He took his wallet, slid something out, and pushed it through the vent. A photograph of a little dog with a grin that looked like a mistake God decided to keep. The back said, in a shaky hand, "Bobby, keep him safe on this run." I let the picture toughen in the heat by my paw. I let the dog's name join the pile of letters in my mouth, waiting for a word worth saying. I put my lip, slow, against the seam. The glass accepted. The wood remembered. "Slow," I said. "You can't outrun what you're asking me to hold back." Slow is a kind of prayer, too. He left. The deputy left with him, after putting his big square hands on the glass one last time and saying, as if to a radio tuned accidentally right, "Thank you." People will argue if I spoke. The owner will say the glass warped. The forums will talk about humidity, ethics, and camera tricks. It doesn't matter. Every prayer changes what it climbs. You want the story of how I was found? It's always the same. A town that didn't believe in shadows until sunset. A preacher with mercy like a cigarette habit. Boys who wanted fear to be a game. Women who wanted night to walk their halls politely. They came into the scrub with borrowed silver and memorized the wrong page. They shot me. The sound made a hole in the desert the wind still hasn't filled. The preacher laid his palm on my head like the world blessing a dog it had a complicated love for. "Stay dead this time," he said. And of all the prayers I've known, that one was almost answered. Almost. They dragged me out of the dirt with a winch and cursing. The taxidermist watched the work until he put the empty where lungs had been and felt the empty exhale. He quit then, told the owner I had breathed, left his tools in a neat row, and never came back. The owner finished in a way that looks finished if you aren't looking. Then the sign went up. Then the cross. Then the napkins with names, the quarters, the rings. Then me, learning the room's silence like a new kind of fur. Then the first time the moon made a bright bruise on the glass and asked if I still loved her. I do. Always. That's the curse's heart. To love the thing that makes you what you're not supposed to be. Listen, not every prayer is for protection. Some kneel because they want permission. The woman with the bruised neck asks for green lights, and beneath that, to be forgiven for wanting to be the last one to leave home. The boy with the knife asks not to be his father, and beneath that, to be made sharp. The deputy asks for the trucker to live through the bend, and beneath that, for the night near the water tower to stop choosing him in his sleep. They all feed me. Hunger is holiness when you are its church. The trucker slowed at the bend. He missed the deer. He didn't outrun what lived in him, but he didn't invite it into the cab either. He stopped at dawn, sat on the curb, and cried with his hands over his face like a man told not yet by a voice he trusts. He mailed the owner $20 in an envelope that said only, "Thank you," and a toll booth receipt number. 1 week later, 2 teenagers broke in after hours with a camera to prove whatever needed proving. They knocked over St. Francis for a laugh. They pressed their faces to my glass and howled. One dared the other to lick the pain. The pain fogged. Their laughter stopped on time. They ran. One dropped his phone. The video stayed pointed at the neon cross. The sound caught the case, remembering it could move. The owner saw it. He didn't call the police. He unplugged the neon and sat on the floor with his back to my wood, breathing like a man teaching himself how. "Don't leave," he said later. To me, or the money, or the ghost of his younger self who thought a museum could keep his father's hands from shaking. Not yet. People think leaving is a door you choose. Sometimes leaving is a throat that opens, asks, and you answer. Sometimes staying is the miracle. Sometimes it's the sin. The bend took someone else anyway. A deer. The deputy put his hat on the hood and watched the tow. He didn't come in that night, or the next month. When he did, he stood where the glass could pretend not to see him. "I brought my boy," he said. A child hid behind his leg. A small shape behind what's always been taller. He kept asking about the sign. He wants to see the wolf that walked like a man. The child came forward. His shirt had a dinosaur washed into myth. He held a coin in his palm like it wanted to run. "What do I say?" he asked. "You can say anything," the deputy told him. "I don't know any prayers." "You don't need to," the deputy said. The kindest thing he's ever said. The child stepped up. His breath made a small white circle. He pressed the coin to the slot. The box kept it. He looked at me with interest instead of fear, which is how the world survives itself. "Hi," he whispered. "I hope you're not lonely." That is a prayer. It's an altar where nothing gets killed. I opened my mouth the width of his finger. He didn't see it. The deputy did, and didn't tell anyone. That is faith, too. Not the loud kind. The kind that keeps a thing safe from crowds long enough for it to mean something. So listen, and write this on a napkin if you have to. I do not bless. I do not curse. I do not choose the deer or arrange the bend. I am a mouth that remembers another mouth. A mirror hung where the road forgets to turn. A hunger that learned manners because the world has children in it. But sometimes, when the moon fits the pane like a coin in a slot, I put my tongue to the seam and taste the metal of your names. I hold the room like a frightened animal, loosely, so it remembers it can leave. I say slow, and look, and stop, the way a mother says them when she already loves you more than your obedience. I say every God eats, which is both warning and promise. A month after the boys with the camera, a woman came with a bouquet from the gas station. Sunflowers in crinkling cellophane. A scar at the corner of her mouth. A voice like good wood. Strong, not hollow. She placed the bouquet by St. Francis, put $1 in the box, and wrote on the back of a receipt, "I want to stop looking over my shoulder when I cross parking lots. Can you teach me how?" She folded the receipt into a small airplane and tucked it beneath my paw. I did not open my mouth. I did not move. But the next morning, the owner found a claw mark in the dust by the vent shaped like the letter Y, answering a question. It isn't always the big kind, but that was a big night. You want an ending with fire? The rumors are ahead of the truth in places like this. Some say the chapel burned and I walked out wearing smoke like a cloak. Some say the neon flared and peeled the word out front down to wolf, the rest falling like dead moths. Some say the owner took a sledge to my case, love disguised as anger. Here's the ending I like. Dawn. The color of breath that is thin and white, telling the day it's allowed. The trucker pulls in just to look at the cross. He doesn't light a candle. He doesn't pay. He says thank you to the air, as if someone spooned weight into it so the word could travel. The deputy stands by his car, watching the horizon perform its trick of rising without moving. The child presses his finger to the glass and leaves the small oval of himself for me to keep, as long as dust keeps anything. The woman with the scar doesn't come. She's walking across a parking lot somewhere else with her head up. And somewhere, a dog with a grin God decided to keep is sleeping without a word for fear. And me? I wait like I always have. I love the moon like I always will. I eat what's given. I say, slow, and look, and stop. I pray the only prayer worth saying. Let the hunger in me be holy enough not to devour what it was asked to guard. The sign out by the road keeps leaning. The paint keeps fading. Someone takes a picture and posts it with a caption that doesn't know it's a confession. Every god gets hungry. Some nights the wind finds the right key. Some nights the seam goes damp and the wood remembers. On those nights, if you're very quiet and haven't lied to yourself all day, you'll hear it. Not a growl, not a hymn. The sound a glass case makes when a museum becomes a mouth. Bring your napkin. Bring your quarter. Bring your small, true weight. Feed the spirit. And go slow.
And that, Midnight Listeners, was the Wolf's Prayer, our pilgrimage to the chapel off exit 19, where the glass listens harder than most people do, and every offering weighs just a little more than the hand that leaves it. If you're still awake, congratulations, you made it past the bend, past the moonlight, past whatever brushed the case when no one else was looking. Remember, out here, belief is optional, but attention? That's mandatory. Now, before we close the door on the chapel for the night, I'll leave you with a small warning, or an invitation, depending on the kind of person you are. Next week, we're heading into a different kind of room. No neon cross, no wolf behind glass, just a tattoo shop with lights that flicker for reasons no electrician can fix, and a needle that remembers more than any man is willing to admit. Some stories carve themselves into the skin, some into the town, and some carve straight into the truth someone's been running from for years. So tune in for episode 15, The Needle Sleeps. We'll find out what really happened on the night the road turned dangerous, and why guilt has such steady hands when it holds a pen made of steel. Until then, keep your headlights steady, keep your prayers light, and don't let anything follow you home, especially if it knows your name. This is Nora Vale, signing off from Murderous Tongues Radio. Stay curious, stay cautious, and as always, go slow.